What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Ammar Ahmad here, host of GTM WORLD Podcast. Today, I've got a guest who is building something really specific and really useful for outbound agencies. Kellen Casebeer was the founder of the Deal Lab, and he's gone deep on making ADIO work as a proper outbound CRM, not just a contact database, but a real pipeline too. Kellen, great to have you on.
Thank you, dude. It's a pleasure to be here.
Love it. Let's just get straight into it. I've got five tight questions, and I want to make sure we'll leave with something actionable for anyone running or starting an outbound agency. Sound good?
Yeah, perfect, dude.
Okay. So my first question would be, what problem were you actually trying to solve when you chose idea for the D lab? Like, what was breaking before you made the switch?
So there's in my decision's kind of two-pronged because one piece is like for my business, meaning how I use CRM to sell Deal Lab services. And then one piece is like how we plug into like the consumer market, right? Like the B2B growth market. And so us as a business, like we've historically used HubSpot. Like I've been a HubSpot partner for super long and I have like a bunch of HubSpot certifications and I'm pretty good at HubSpot. HubSpot as a company is, it's the inbound marketing company, right? Like it's where inbound came from. And a lot of their CRM architecture is very much so built for like marketing, inbound marketing. They have a lot of product features around ads and
Right.
content and a bunch of stuff that I'm just doing nothing with. And so because I'm not doing anything with that, it's kind of like I'm a big fan of the word congruency, right? And if you think of congruency as like how two things fit together, it's like
Exactly.
they're like this big circle, and what I need isn't that congruent with that exactly, right? So that was the first thing. The second thing is I just don't use my CRM that like I don't have that intricate of a CRM build in general historically, right? So it's kind of like I basically pipe my Calendly pipes in as like new deals. I mostly use the deal Kanban board with some notes. That's basically it. Right. And then the last piece for my business is I want to legitimize it, right? I want to demonstrate our abilities via my own, it's kind of like if I'm selling like go-to-market excellence, I want to be my own example of that, number one. Number two, I have a bunch of these random nodes of things I do, right? So I have a couple like newsletters that I haven't been good about writing, but I'm going to be. It's just kind of like a down, but I have some newsletters, I have some, my community, I have content, I have partner, like there's all these things going on in the world, and I don't capture that. I don't log that. I don't do anything intelligent with that right now. And so I wanted to sort of upgrade the way that my business uses CRM as a concept, right? And so this is kind of like where did my needs come from? Was like my goal was legitimize the way I use CRM, add some complexity to the business and to show off like our chops. And when it came to kind of like selecting tooling for that, Adio is built as like the AI CRM. Like their
Exactly.
intent, the
The
ethos
ICR.
from the
Yeah.
get-go is like be this AI product and be sort of representative of the future, right? And it's also native in my perspective to like AI go-to-market, meaning instead of being like a market, it's built, purpose built, I think, for a lot of my ethos. And if I think of like the future world as being lower headcount in general, using more agentic products, I just have confidence and faith that like Adio, not only the product today as built, but also sort of like directionally where they intend to be building is the most maximally congruent with sort of like what I'm looking for.
And that was a very descriptive and worthy answer for this question. And my second question would be like, if you're being a consultant for these outbound agencies, emerging outbound agencies out there, what mistake do new outbound agencies usually make when they set up their CRM? Like, if you could have someone 3 months of plan, what would you tell them?
This isn't to me even dedicated specific to outbound agencies. It's just companies. And I think it's like they fall on one end of a stream that they need to find that they should be finding like a middle ground. And it's basically like the complexity of their build. So some people are like, I don't need anything, and they almost track nothing, right? Like I use Google Sheets, and that's like okay for a little bit. But I think the more that you track, it's just like you at some point you're going to want like a proper system. And especially if you sell to companies that operate out of systems like this, like you should be in something that's relatively similar. So I think that what people do, so they either oversimplify it and they track nothing, or they add too much complexity and they try to track too much, or spend too much time like planning. And so for me, I worked backwards from like what is my behavior? Like what do I actually do? What are the impulses of the things? And it's like I have active deals that I want to save stuff associated to. I need I want a view of like where is everything and what is the last time I did something with these things. I want to be able to tag like who are people that are in my community and what are their roles. I want to know like is someone following my company page and commenting on my stuff, so it's like some of these. And so once I started to think about that, it backed into kind of like, okay, what are like the fields that I'll need? Right. And so I just think that like the architecture of the CRM, it's either very unapproachable, so people make it useless or not useful really, or it's so approachable that they make it their goal to like actualize the CRM versus, land business. And it's kind of like you don't need a perfect CRM. If you think of Pareto distribution, the first 20% of your effort gets 80% of the outcome. And so and then the next 80% of your effort, four times the time, only gets 20% yield. And so it's kind of like you probably, as an outbound agency or as a company standing up an initial CRM, you shouldn't be spending five times as much to get that last little bit of gain. You should just like quickly, what's the first 20%, 80% of benefit, and go start doing stuff.
Lovely. Okay, so I hear this my answer very well, but if somebody wants to see a setup and structure, like if somebody can just give them a walkthrough how you actually structure it to fit your agency's sale process, like what does this architecture look like? Objects, lists, and pipelines. You just told us about that you're managing it for your community and your posts and all of this stuff, which you're not having a hold on for that good, and but now you're just using Eddie for that. So I just want to know the architecture. How does it look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm a fan, like I usually am using companies, contacts, deals almost exclusively. There's versions of companies that need like other types of objects for various reasons, but I like to keep it really simple. I'll probably in the future have like an engagement arc. Like I'm literally like doing this migration and like so I'm doing kind of like the simple things first. It's possible in the future I'll have things like an engagement object, right, that gets tied to contacts and things like that. But basically company contact deal. I'm a fan on an object, like the field types I use. I try not to have too much interconnected fields. And so an example is like I could have a tag, like a list of tags that could be like follows the Deal Lab, follows Kellen, subscribes to Kellen's newsletter, subscribes to the Deal Lab newsletter, is a GTM Cafe member. And that could be one field with all those check boxes. But the problem with that then is you have a bunch of like last updated, like, right? So then if you pull like last updated date, you don't know. And so I like to generally kind of like silo things, but then you have to reconcile that against not having just too much stuff, right? And so that's where it kind of goes. But to me, my general ethos is like a thing that you want to do something with, you should silo out so it can just do its job. And then that way you can also undo it. So like let's say I'm like, oh, I'm gonna track if they subscribe to my newsletter. And then let's say like 4 months later, I'm like, it literally hasn't done it doesn't matter. Like this is showing no value. Then I can just delete all those fields and move on. Versus if they're interconnected with a bunch of fields, then I'm like, okay, great. Now I don't know, like, have I already removed it? Did I never score this person? Like that type of stuff.
Having the idea that what I'm going to do with that, it really, really means a lot and it really helps you generate more business. So I got your point, like what you're going to do that with the idea in the next few months. Okay, so I guess we already discussed that before this podcast, and that was like who should use HubSpot and who should use Idea. Like if it depends on the headcount of the people working at an agency or a company out there. So what should a small urban agency really think before choosing Ario as their CRM? Like, who's it right for? And who should probably look elsewhere? That's my biggest question and the last question, I guess. I would say
Yeah,
this is more of a decision criteria.
totally, totally. I think it's like it's in a way it's hard to answer in that the way I look at it. So one of my beliefs is a lot of things are not going to work no matter what. Right? So as an example, if you're just not going to like maintain your CRM, no CRM is going to serve you. And so there's some people probably listening that are like, I really care about his answer because I'm going to be terrible with my CRM and I'm trying to figure out like what's easiest. And it's kind of like, be careful because that attitude almost never is going to work. And then there's some things that are going to work almost like no matter what, right? So like it might be like you could use nothing and you're going to be fine. I think again, I can most best speak to my decision making process. And for me, it was as simple as like there's some big incumbent CRM companies that were built for something very specific, and it isn't me, right? Like Salesforce makes its money not off the Kellens of the world. So they're not making decisions off what makes Kellen's decision, the best.
Yes, sir.
Right? Like they're big, they're entrenched, they're per seat based, they're all these things, right? Then you have HubSpot. HubSpot kind of similar, where it's like it's established, it has reputation, it has types of users that are using it. And a lot of times, if you have a very, and historically it's been like if the company is like culturally extremely sales driven, you might be in Salesforce because that's what's familiar. And you have like a RevOps person reporting to a head of sales who owns that architecture. And if you're a really marketing driven company, marketing might own the architecture and marketing might be using HubSpot for some reasons. And I think, but really, if a company is asking themselves, like, what should I be using? It's like, really, I would think of it first as like, what is the goal that you're aiming at? Like, why are you trying to use something at all? Under the why are you doing this? Like, what do you believe needs to happen for you to hit that goal? Right. So don't choose the tool, but like, oh, okay, I need to track my sales opportunities so that I don't lose track. Great. Okay. So you need a Kanban board, right? So now you can answer like, so strategically, you're like, I need a Kanban board that has da 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 da, whatever, right? Then you get into tactics and tools, meaning like, okay, what should I actually select and what do I actually need to do to like manifest these ideas? And I think early on in CRM, you're going to have some flexibility and you should focus on who is the right person to be making that decision. For my business, I made the decision through, I believe that ADIO is built for and building for businesses that sort of look like mine, which is not the legacy sales team, which is not the sort of like legacy, like marketing, like driven ethos. And instead is something that's like an agentic vessel for how I want to do things. And I think that there's flexibility and like AI nativeness to that I believe in. And that's how I made that decision.
Thank you so much. And I guess this has been incredibly practical, and that was more of a clarity for even me as well. I feel like anyone listening who's running Outbound can take something away from this today. Where can people follow you and your work and learn more about the D Lab?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn's probably number one. So Kellen
Almost
Casebeer on
20,000 followers
LinkedIn.
now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know I hit 20K. Yeah, yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, yeah. So LinkedIn's a good one. I do a lot of posting there, and then the Slack community, gtmcafe.com. Like I do a ton in there, and I'm very available. So
The
if
world's
anyone ever has,
greatest GTM community, guys.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we have a pretty good claim for that these days. But that's you only can have that when you have great members. You know what I mean? And so I think that's part of So yeah, I would just say those two places, and then my company, thedeallab.com, if it's helpful. But if you're listening to this, you probably can find that already.
Perfect. We will drop all of that in the new show notes. Everyone, if the episode was useful, share it with someone who's building an outbound agency and trying to figure out their CRM stack. That's all for today. See you in the next one.